Principal broker is responsible for maintaining the financial records at the place of business. A question that's been coming up a lot that we just received clarification on through a bill this year, people have always asked, do I have to maintain paper records or can I put it into an electronic form? We've always said as long as when the investigator comes knocking on your door, you can give the stuff to them. You could have it paper or electronically. They just passed as part of HB 1907, a part in there that's basically within the statute now says that you can keep your records electronically in compliance with the Uniform Electronics Transaction Act. So you
Guys,
can.
I have to tell you, the first time I heard her do this, I was really impressed that she has the statutes memorized. And I looked over and I said, that can't be right. Jay looked at it and goes, well, yeah, it is.
You did good.
Yeah, unfortunately I do. Let's see. Oh, okay. All right, we're going to... Okay. A complete record of the financial transactions conducted under the authority of the principal broker's license shall be maintained at the place of business or in a designated branch office. So say you've got a company where you've got one group that does a lot of property management and another, section that does mostly the sales and stuff, and they're handled in two separate offices. If our investigator comes knocking on the door, if you've got that designated branch office that does the property management, they can go there and look at the property management records, or then they can go to the firm's office and that's where they do the sales. That's fine. We just it has to be maintained in a place of business that we're aware of, being at a branch office or the firm. Principal broker is responsible for having a bookkeeping system which accurately reflects the financial status of the firm. You don't want to be like one of our licensees who basically handed everything over to her bookkeeper, who was somebody she knew from church, who happened to have done bookkeeping in the past.
That's on her laptop.
Yeah. And principal broker had no idea about what was going on with the firm. Well, come to find out that this bookkeeper / friend from church had some criminal convictions in her background for embezzlement, and she turned around and embezzled approximately $185,000 out of the escrow accounts. And the principal broker had not a clue because the bookkeeping system was not at the company. It was on this woman's laptop, and she had no idea what was going on. And she just like, oh, I trust her. Well, that trust got her into a whole lot of trouble with the board. So you need to know what's going on with your bookkeeping system. And again, when we come knocking on the door, this bookkeeping system needs to accurately reflect all of the transactions and what's going on with your firm. Again, this is the principal broker shall maintain a bookkeeping or record-keeping system which accurately and clearly discloses full compliance with the regulations outlined in the section, and they have to be sufficient in detail to provide necessary information to show compliance. So basically, what we're looking at is, does it show money in, money out, and for what transactions? That's just a basic thing, but I mean, it gets into more detail and. When they do the inspections, that's one of the things they're looking for. They're responsible for keeping copies of all the firm's records for 3 years as prescribed by the regulation. So you're looking at, contracts, property management agreements if that's what you do, leases if that's what you do, disclosure forms, all of that stuff. You need to keep it for 3 years. And again, it can be kept in paper form or now it can be kept in electronic form. Yes, ma'am?
What do you do about lead-based paint? 10 years down the road, you get something that comes back on that, and when you purge your documents, what do you do?
I mean, if it's more than 3 years old, then you don't have to keep that anymore.
There are other things that you might want to keep your records longer for, but what Christine's telling you, for purposes of the real estate board, they're only going to look back 3 years. The IRS, as you know, is going to look back up to 7. You can be sued under contract for 5 years. You can be sued on a judgment for 20 years. I mean, there are other reasons you might want to keep your papers, but and lead-based paint disclosures and things like that. But statutes of limitations generally are getting shorter rather than longer. That's the trend.
And basically, the statute of limitations within the department's overall law that applies to all of the boards within our agencies, 541307.
There she goes again.
Sorry. It's 3 years, and so that's what kind of where we base it on. If you have 3 years to file a complaint with the board, unless it's something, there was a material misrepresentation, then you can look back 2 years from the time you discover the material misrepresentation. Okay, so here you've got principal brokering, or in this case, it's the supervising broker. But again, it's a broker. They have to retain for a period of 3 years from the date of closing or ratification if the transaction fails to close, a complete and legible copy of each disclosure of brokerage relationship, executed contract agreement, closing statement related to the transaction that's in the broker's control or possession, unless prohibited by law. A lot of times we get questions about the HUD-1 statements, and sometimes the brokers get them and sometimes they don't. So again, it's what's in your possession and control.